Well, there's a lot of disinformation out there about him. I've met him in person several times and found him to be a very genteel, nice person. I didn't get any bad vibes from him, and I know that that's always the real signal. And I've been selling his book now for many years, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. One of the only places you can actually get it is at Infowars.com. And when I first read this a decade ago or so, I'm going to be frank with you. I'd met Fritz when he was here in Austin on local TV, down at the station, and met him at another conference event once. And I believed he believed a lot of it, but even though I snuck into Bohemian Grove and things, and I first met him right after I snuck in there, I still had trouble believing it. Since then, so much. He was the first guy I heard talking about the royal family of England not really being German, but being from Transylvania. And then, really being Arabic and all this stuff, or Sephardic. And then now that's on national news now. So just a lot of really wild stuff. And then over the years, so much of it, no matter how wild, has turned out to be true. Now, imagine Fritz. He had, I don't know how many books out, everywhere he went, selling tons of them. I know we were selling a lot. I happen to know the publisher. I knew they were selling them. He would have no reason to bomb a porno store or whatever and then rob a bank. And I remember him saying, they're breaking in my house, they're trying to set me up. I remember seeing it in the news, they'd been raiding him and stuff. And then, boom, they grabbed him, put him in jail. Now, remember, the government has a 98% conviction rate with the feds. And he's on probation. He's been in jail for many years. He's lost a lot of weight. I just saw him on Skype a minute ago. He looks better than he did just a few weeks ago in the one video I've seen of a little presentation he did. He'll be back again, but we got to be careful how much he gets into today. But he's agreed. What he wants to talk about is who he really is versus the lies of places like Wikipedia, and what happened to him, what he can say about prison, and where he sees the world, 7-8 years after being incarcerated. But they can do this to anybody. They can plant drugs on yours truly, or put horrible things on my computer, or, God forbid, kill my family and say I did it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff the globalists have been caught doing. Operation Northwoods talks about how to frame Americans for bombings that the Pentagon carries out. And frame-ups are legend. Now with DNA, we know about a third of people on death row are innocent. And we learn, there was a case in Texas I saw a few weeks ago where the prosecutor for 20 years knew the person was innocent and knew who did it, but didn't care. It was about their career. They'll even put people with no criminal record like Fritz in jail. Usually they like to set somebody up who's already got a record, like people believe it. Very, very frightening. And so Fritz Springmeier joins us via video Skype. Fritz, for people that don't know who you are, a lot of people that have been into the conspiracy, into reality, they, of course, know who you are. Over the years, I've said, they said, where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Or why don't you get his wife on? And we've tried, as you know, many times to get her on. She obviously couldn't because she didn't want him to do stuff to you in jail. Now you've been out a while, but obviously, even Free Ricky Ross, who started speaking out against government drug dealing, now they're trying to throw him back in jail. So I want you to be very careful here today. We appreciate you giving us the first big interview that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong. Good to have you here, Fritz. Tell us who you are, a brief snapshot of your life. I know they said you weren't a West Point graduate. I actually went and looked it up in their rolls. There's your photo. There you are. But the point is, they've really attacked you. You hit some things that really scared them. Was it the Transylvanian bloodline? Is it the satanic rituals? I mean, why did they come? Well, get into who you are, what happened in prison, why they came after you, you think, and now what you see in the world.
Wow, that's a lot of questions. Okay, let's see what we can do with them. First, who am I? For myself, the image I have is as someone who's trying to model Christ. He's my role model, and that's all that really matters about my life, is that I be Christ-like. All the labels that the system tries to the system is labeling people right now, and their computer programs carry these labels. Like, for instance, 2/3 of the blacks in major cities are labeled as affiliates of gangs or gang members, you know. And so there's all kinds of labels that have been slapped on me, but the only label that I would want to be identified with is somebody who's trying to follow Christ. My life's been unusual. My father had the goal of helping save the world. He was an agricultural expert, and he went around the world living in many, many third world countries and trying to help them become self-sufficient. He made a career out of that. And he passed on the concept of trying to save the world to me. He said, you know, he said that if you're going to live life, when you leave it, leave the world a better place than what you found it. You know, sort of like that Boy Scout thing is when you go camping, leave the site better than what you found it. And I think I have honestly tried to do that and accomplish that to some degree. Why were they ticked off at me? I think it was a combination of a whole bunch of things that I did, but one of the things that they were really sensitive about was the mind control, the trauma-based mind control. You'll notice that I put out 3 books on it with about 40 pages of the actual codes that they use on the slaves. And once you have read those books and you're familiar with the codes, you can sit there and watch television and see them manipulating these total mind-controlled slaves left and right all around us. And people are constantly telling me that, you know, after they got in touch with my information, now they realize what's going on around them. Another thing, as far as
that's the book, How to Create a Totally Undetectable Mind Control Slave, which now they admit everything on TV is layers of programming depending on how programmed you are, and just someone watching TV since they were a small child, they are under a form of mind control, and actually scientifically, even BBC admits, in a lower brainwave function than we were just 50 years ago, the public in general is in a trance.
Yes, people sit in front of their televisions in a trance. In a sense, they're almost worshiping that altar, their television altar. So true, what you just said. And of course, your listeners have heard a lot of this. So, you know, I'm not telling them probably anything that they're not already familiar with. But
you were a trailblazer. How did you discover all that? So that made them really angry at you.
Yes, I kind of bumped into the whole thing. I view myself as a historian, not as a conspiracy theorist. And I was doing a massive amount of research into the elite, you know, because we are now a government of the power elite, by the power elite, and for the power elite. And I was researching them to expose them, and I had the privilege of meeting 4 people that had been teamed up in the Illuminati to be a 4-person team that were trying to get out. And they pointed me in the right direction on a lot of things. I had to do most of the research myself, but because they pointed me in the right direction, it really helped me. And then that's how I got into the mind control.
By the way, just a segue, I ran into a famous person a few weeks ago and had dinner with them, and they point blank told me about Illuminati rituals and Hellfire Club and stuff, but then said, I'm not going to talk about that on your show, maybe sometime. So the point is, we know these things existed and do exist, but I mean, you're sitting there having dinner with a well-known famous person, and they're just point blank telling you all about it. It's just incredible. And to find out that most of the people that are part of Oxford in any of the elite clubs are actually taken to the caves, engage in rituals. I mean, it's just so widespread. You know, when I grew up in Dallas, people tried to recruit me into, and I'm talking about with wealthy people, into occultic stuff. This stuff is rampant.
Yes, it is. It's everywhere. And once once you're familiar with what it looks like and smells like, you see it everywhere. I just I've become almost numb to it. I walk around and I see it all around me, and it doesn't even register hardly with me that what's going on, because I've just seen it for so many years and been able to recognize it for what it is.
Incredible. Okay, we're going to break in a moment, but this is just amazing. Continue in just 1 minute before we get back into what are some of the other things they got mad at you for and then clearly set you up. I want to talk about some of how you were set up. It's just incredible.
Well, you know, when I started working with these 4 people, I was trying to help them leave. And when you're in the Illuminati, you don't leave. It's like being an intelligence agent. When you enter, like, you know, if you entered the GRU, the KGB or whatever, they told you, you know, you don't leave our organization. Well, you don't leave the Illuminati. And that was what I was trying to help quite a few people do. And to the extent of actually giving away addresses and names and everything of people that were in the lives of the people I was trying to rescue. I exposed an entire Illuminati community in Bend, Oregon, and they all moved out. They sold their houses and moved out to different locations.
So you were like Van Helsing. Stay there, Fritz. You were like Van Helsing exposing them, these psychic vampires, so they wanted to punish you and put you under the jail. Let's come back and talk about this on the other side with Fritz Springmeier, author of Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Stay with us. Well, Fritz Springmeier is our guest, and if he can do it Thursday, I'm broadcasting live for 27 hours total from 11 a.m. until the end of my show the next day. I might have Aaron do the last hour or something in the official show, but Aaron Dykes. I want to invite Fritz back for an hour. We've got so many guests, from George Norrie to David Icke to you name it, joining us that day. It's just going to be amazing. It'll all be free, by the way, not just the audio streams, but the parts not carried by XM, AM, FM, shortwave, satellite, and things like that. You're going to be able to see free. And I think to beta test it, we're going to have it free on Justin TV, free stream from prisonplanet.tv, and a couple different systems embedded at Infowars.com and at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com, so people can watch the entire 27-hour extravaganza, where we try to get the rest of the funding for a couple more crew members, reporters, more equipment, and the fiber optic systems we need to get the show delivered to TV systems. Okay, going back to Fritz Springmeier with us for the rest of the hour, maybe a little bit in the next, joining us via video Skype. Fritz, you were getting to the point of running these guys out of the community. And I remember you were doing it. The cops were raiding your house, quote, for marijuana, finding nothing, then saying on the news, we found extremist material. Well, of course, you were always in your talks showing different groups and how they controlled them. And, you know, you're a researcher. So, I mean, they could come to my house and find Mein Kampf and say he had a Hitler book. I mean, you know, they could go to a Jewish rabbi's house and find that and say he's a Nazi, I guess. So you were warning people. You said they're getting ready to set me up. Why on earth would you then go rob a bank? And then they used all these disreputable people to do this to you. Briefly, tell folks about how you were set up.
They bribed 3 real criminals. When I was initially indicted and brought before a federal judge, Judge Brown, she honestly said, and she told this straight to the DA, she said, I'm going to release this man until trial, because there is absolutely no evidence against him, and there never was. And the judge kept saying, the judge that presided over my trial, he kept saying, like it was some kind of a mantra. He said, he kept telling everybody in the courtroom, circumstantial evidence can be used to prove anything. Well, circumstantial evidence is like, I went to the mall and I saw Santa Claus. I saw him on television. I saw a book about him. Therefore, Santa Claus exists, you know. So using Brian
Or I say I went to Scotland, and I saw the Loch Ness Monster with no proof.
Exactly. And that's what they hung me with. Absolutely no evidence, with bribe testimony that didn't even mean anything. And it's pretty startling. But today, juries are going to be looking at what the DA is doing, and they're going to, obviously my jury if it was sincerely looking at the issues, must have said, well, why is the government going to all this trouble if he's not guilty? Because if they looked at at what was actually presented in the courtroom, there was nothing really presented. Now,
and by the way, I looked into your case. I looked into your case when I called, when this was all starting. You weren't there, but your wife was. And it was like, oh, he's not worried. This is all just another attempted setup, because you knew it was ridiculous and you knew